In episode 37, season 1 of the Pokemon anime, we are introduced to Ditto in the episode called Ditto's Mystery Mansion. However, in this episode, this Ditto in particular has the interesting problem of keeping its original face when it transforms into things. This old 90s meme would then be the catalyst for a variety of different ventures throughout many a year for the Pokemon company at large, which has now led us to a new video game coming out very soon called Pokemon Pokopia, in which Ditto is the main character. And yes, Ditto has the same face in this game. So, with all that being said, I think when we do get a new Smash Bros. For the Nintendo Switch 2, that Ditto will be on the roster as a fighter. Now, I need to walk you down a bit of a lane to explain why I think Ditto has become so important after that anime episode. You see, since that episode has premiered, the Ditto face has become quite a staple in the Pokemon franchise. Before researching this, I did not know that it even appeared in the first Pokemon Snap for the Nintendo 64, in which Ditto is imitating a Bulbasaur, and that Bulbasaur just happens to have a Ditto face, which is very interesting. But the biggest boon that I've seen around, and I didn't know when it started up until now, but in 2016, the Pokemon Company officially leaned into this whole imperfect transformation bit that Ditto is known for with a plushie line called Ditto Transformation, or Henshin Metamon, in which a variety of Pokemon plushies were released with Ditto's face on them. This, however, was followed up in 2019 with the release of the live-action film Detective Pikachu, in which Ditto was a minor antagonist, in which we actually get to see Ditto transform into a human, and yes, it retains its really weird face, which is horrifying in live action, but also very funny, which I think is another sign that led us to the point we are now with Pokemon Pokopia. However, with all that being said, Ditto has a very weird and intimate relationship with the Super Smash Bros. Series, because in the second entry of the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, Super Smash Bros. Melee, it was originally intended for Ditto to be one of the Pokemon that you could summon from the Pokeball item. Once summoned, Ditto would simply copy the fighter who summoned it and fight alongside them. However, due to complications, Ditto did not make it for the final release. There's still some data left over proving its existence. However, it simply didn't make it through. You can see it as being a representative of the random button in Melee's tournament mode, and there is some voice data left over. Ditto is also a trophy in the game. But what's so interesting about this is that, based on a video that we've done a while ago talking about Mewtwo and its relationship to Ditto, this would be another situation in which Ditto follows Mewtwo, or it would be if Ditto was in the game, because Super Smash Bros. Melee was Mewtwo's first Smash Brothers. So it would have been really funny if Ditto was indeed a Pokeball item in this game, because it would continue the trend of Ditto following Mewtwo everywhere Mewtwo goes. And I guess you can say it still follows Mewtwo in spirit in Melee, seeing as how there is some representation, but I just find that very funny that that was originally intended, but didn't work out to the fullest at that time. However, with the release of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, we would finally get to see Ditto claim its place as a Pokeball item with its original function intact, in which it copies the fighter that summons it. So this story does have a happy ending. However, with that being said, based on all of this knowledge, I could see with Ditto getting its own spot as a primary character in the upcoming video game Pokemon Pokopia, that some revision could be in order when it comes to Ditto's representation in Smash Brothers, because now it's a game lead onto itself, giving it more importance. And based on its intimate history with Smash Brothers, it stands out a bit more than most Pokeball item Pokemon, because it has a history of not being implemented in the game, but being implemented in other ways until it was finally implemented with the original intent in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So I could see with Pokemon Pokopia being a bit of a culmination of all of what Ditto has gone throughout its history in the franchise, that this creepy representation of Ditto from that game could be included in the next Super Smash Bros. Game. And now, too, on the bright side as well, if you ever wanted something to represent the entire first generation of Pokemon, Ditto could be your guy. And that's a very interesting thought to think about. But what's also quite interesting, and I hope this happens, when you have a fighter in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and they enter the boxing ring, each fighter gets their own ring title. I hope Ditto's ring title is the Imperfect Imposter, because imperfect would be a reference to the whole Ditto face meme that we've been talking about throughout the video, and imposter is actually a reference to its signature ability that was its hidden ability introduced in Generation 5. So Black and White and Black and White 2. So yeah, I think that would be a really cool reference to both of those things combining together to be its stage name on the boxing ring stage. But with that being said, stay rosy.